All right, welcome to another episode of Coach's Corner. I'm really excited. We have Tamara Schroer with us today. She is the VP of Global Training or VP of Training at Working Solutions. Did I get the title right, Tamara?
You did. Perfect. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and Tamara, so Coach's Corner is basically, people log in that hear and talk about coaching in different ways that people are developing human talent from their most passionate AI coaching folks at SimTrain, right? And so we're looking forward to hearing from you today, kind of talking through this miraculous process of developing humans and helping them hit the pinnacle of their success by combining things like the mental approach to learning as well as the physical and the actual the activities that are required to develop skills and build those capabilities so people can not just perform at their highest level of performance but even break through barriers that folks never even thought that were possible. So really excited to talk to you today. I'd love to open the floor. You can do a little introduction on yourself and the work you're doing at Working Solutions and developing human talent.
I love to. First of all, Dan, thank you very much for having me today. My name is Tamara Schroer, and as Dan said, I'm VP of Education and Development at Working Solutions. But a little bit about me, because it really tells a lot about coaching and teaching, which I think are one of the same. I started off in the classroom. I'm an educator and always have been. I worked at a place called Boys Town out of Omaha, Nebraska. I started my career in the classroom working with at-risk youth, a big stepping stone of my career because I not only got to work with kids in the classroom and helping them learn and grow, I got to work with educators and teachers around the country. I worked with two women from Harvard that helped develop a program for those kids that were ranged from 12 to 18 years old and they couldn't read back in the early 90s. It was, everyone was surprised and there was nothing out there. So our goal was to accelerate learning. And how can you accelerate learning and make a year to 2 years growth in one semester? Well, it was a lot of great strategies and methodologies and thinking about how you train and do that. So now move forward, and I brought those great trainings and methodology and techniques to the corporate side. And that's been exciting and it's been a great ride for the last 24 years because no one knew. Everyone thinks when you're in training, you have this big load of curriculum and you dump it, whether it's 4, 6, 8 weeks, and I don't care what the line of business is. You Everybody has this brain and you've got to exercise that muscle the best. So today at Working Solutions, my biggest passion is really working on improving learning. We are an outsourcer, but we also have the same challenges of people across the country and any training department and in any classroom. You've got to help get that learner to understand what you're teaching them, whether it's on for a test, whether it's to go live and take a call, whether it's to perform in a game. No matter what you do, you want to speed learning up so that they're performing at the end. And that is what we do today. And I'm very excited that we are Learning Platform of the Year. We also are BPO of the Year, and that doesn't just happen because we do things right. We continue to learn, we continue to grow. And one last thing, because I could talk about this all day long, but my department only hires educators. You can be a knowledge expert and you can be really good at what you do, but how you turn around and train that to others is a whole other skill. A knowledge expert typically, not always, trains it the way they learned it. An educator trains it for all different learning styles. And that
Awesome.
is the key to our success and what we do and how we accelerate performance at Working Solutions. So a little
Awesome.
bit about
Amazing
me and
background.
what we're doing.
Yeah, thanks, Tamara. And that's a great background, right? I mean, you mentioned a couple people that you met in your career that were probably a little bit aspirational and they've done amazing things. Is there one coach, one trainer, teacher in your lifetime that really made you think this is the path for me? Like developing humans and human talent, that's something I really want to do for a living. Or even after you got in the path, where somebody that inspired you as much as you're talking about inspiring everyone else. This is awesome.
Yes, the one I can think that has been in my career, this person really mentored me to take what I know and go one step further. Here was an educator that came to the whole call center world, right? The whole corporate world. She was an active listener. She really taught me and really got me to think deeper of what I was doing. She had great emotional intelligence. She could really help me to kind of knew when I kind of sensed when, like, hey, keep doing what you're doing. This is awesome. What you're saying makes sense. And she challenged me to give me the platform that I needed to really grow myself. So you always need that coach to give you that push or that skill to keep moving and perform and be the best you can be. And that person I'm forever grateful for. So and I have them throughout your life, right? And all different things. But this
Th-
was one that was a turning point in my career.
Does she have a name?
She does. Her name is Terry Maxwell.
Awesome. That's really neat. By the way, as you were talking, I thought maybe you were going to talk, say Kim, right at the end. I love how you left it as like this, like you built it up, like, hey, let's build this up and get everyone excited, and then we'll tell you about Terry Maxwell's name at the end. So that's really cool. Hey, you talked about, the difference between, a knowledge expert, right, or maybe even an expert and a true educator, right? And I really like that, right? And we talk about coaching all the time as the different variances of, developing people and the where they're at and understanding where they're at. Are there any like key concepts, things that you really love, maybe today that you're utilizing that really make an impact on the learning process, right? So, and what we love at SimTrain is we talk about the difference between knowledge and performance, right? How do you apply that knowledge to learn how to perform better and get there faster? What are some concepts or key techniques that you and your team at Working Solutions utilize that you can share with our audience?
I love that. I think one of our key differentiators or what we do, maybe secret sauce, is it's just a great teaching strategy. And that is, what is the percentage of teaching, learning that you're doing versus practice and really doing? And that is the key to all learning. Someone that comes into a classroom that's just getting dumped with information, I'm going to tell you, if you're doing teaching and learning 90% of the time just feeding information and checking for understanding, feeding information, checking for understanding, you are going to learn 50, you're going to lose 50% of what you learn daily and 90% by the time you're done, because you have to feed information and then practice information. And our perfect formula for what we've piloted, we've done a variety of different pilots, one with SimTrain, where 40% of it you teach, where you're learning information and it's going into the brain, and 60% of it is actually practice. And I can't say enough of that. As I'm going and working with a variety of different clients with different curriculums, I'm seeing an average of 80 to 90% of teaching. There's no practice going on, and you've got to have practice. And the reason the practice does is it gives that the opportunity to make mistakes. It gives them opportunity to work one on one and process that information and become a better performer. So many times I will get, how can I practice this information? How can we take the information now and practice it? Because usually that's in small groups, one on one. Okay, that's when you got to really start to internalize that. That's where AI has come in for us, where now we can, instead of having a variety of different teachers working one on one, they're now using AI to practice what has been taught. That is huge. We're really providing an environment that is a safe environment that now it allows them to make mistakes. Now, instead of doing it in front of everybody in a whole group when we're teaching and the trainer's calling on you, you're now able to provide this individual practice of what you're going to do live. Practice is the key to your success, and it's 40%, 60% of that instruction in a classroom. So that's one. I could go on and give you a variety of others, but you can go ahead
Tamara,
and ask me
yeah,
another.
I'm going to ask you for another. So by the way, thank you for the advertisement on sim training, right? And then practice, how important that is. Didn't even pay you for that, and we didn't even prepare that ahead of time. So that's genuine and authentic, and totally agree, right? You need to learn the fundamentals, and then you need to practice the fundamentals, and then you need to take them into different situations and scenarios. Two things you mentioned in your answer. You talked about the sandbox effect, right? Which is going in and being able to play and being able to make mistakes freely and openly, like a little kid in a sandbox, drives a faster level and a much higher level of learning. And you also mentioned the doorway effect, where you actually, they say if you're just being told something and you're asking to remember it, by the time you walk out the door, you already lose like 70% of what you learn. And then you even mentioned it goes up to 90 over time, right? So I would love to hear, on top of practice, some of these other effects or things that you and your team really lean in on that drives learning into performance, in addition to the practice that you're providing or the types of practice you're doing. Anything that you're doing special with how you deliver it that we should all know about?
We do. So, a big thing, so we're able to scale. So, when you have a lot of people sitting in a classroom, how can you get that one-on-one attention? So, we're teaching, we're feeding people information, but when we have to provide opportunities to practice, so the first thing we do is how do you do that to be able to scale? We are using AI. I call it my assistant instructor. I am huge. The trainer's never going to leave the classroom. We need them for so many different reasons, but we also need them to be able to provide practice. So the first thing is we need to scale, and being able to do that, the AI is able to work one-on-one with the learners, being able to provide that practice and give that immediate feedback. So that's huge when you're creating a curriculum that's going to really get them to perform and get them to speed to proficiency, is being able to individualize, being able to provide that immediate feedback. Because what happens during that time, it allows the learner to take more risks. When you take more risks, you make mistakes. And that's okay, because now the anxiety's low and they want to take the risk and they're going to learn more. And the more they learn, the more mistakes they learn, light bulbs start going off. And the more then they receive feedback. They turn around, they continue to keep growing. So now they're taking risks, they're less anxious, and we're providing feedback. This
Yep.
is when knowledge comes about. This is speed to proficiency. This is learning on steroids, learning, practicing. The other key big thing is breaking your learning out into micro lessons, chunks. Okay. You can't have all your practice in one day and then expect them to just go take a test and learn it or go perform. It has to be in chunks. So if you're, for example, in the call center, if you are learning a process, a system, and a script, you can't do it all at once. You got to chunk it out. You got to have complexity along the way. And with that comes, again, taking risks, feeling less anxious, feeling knowledgeable. Now they're empowered. Now they're getting the performance, and now they're ready to perform. That's speed to proficiency, and that is knowledge on steroids. That's accelerating your learning, and that's what's going to make the learner want to do more and learn more.
Awesome. And Tamara, so I read the book Make It Stick in order to prepare for today's interview, right? Because I know you're a career trainer and at the highest level. So I wanted to make sure we could talk at the same level, or at least I could repeat what other people at your level write about, right? And so they talked a lot. He talked a lot in that book about the concept of spaced practice, which you just mentioned, right? Amazing, right? The micro learning components of spaced practice and also iterative learning. One of the things that really stuck with me was he gave an example of a hockey coach who was doing one touch practice and his team wasn't getting it. So then he started moving that practice exercise around the ice to the different variations and changing the approach, right? And so I just thought that was really cool. And you talked about all of those things that you're using in the classroom and in the virtual training for your teams. And that's on the coaching side, the content concept. What about the coaches? What about your team? What makes a great coach in your mind, Tamara?
So, you know what? Training and coaching is used interchangeably. And I know this sounds a little bit in
Yeah,
my
address
world,
that.
it
Maybe
really
address
does.
that. Yeah, yeah, I love it.
Okay. I think it's blended. What makes a great trainer and what makes a great coach? If you were to ask me that, it's kind of both. But I'm going to tell you, when you think of someone who trains or an educator, you think of someone who's kind of planting the seeds. Okay. Whether you're learning a sport, whether you're learning a skill, whether you're learning some kind of academic, whatever it may be, you're planting the seed. You're learning new information and skills. So what's happening is the teacher's spending all their time explaining and the student is absorbing. So when you think of teaching, you think it's a more passive kind of learning during this time. When you think of coaching, you think of the opposite, right? Because this is what's really helping them grow. They're unlocking their potential. You're working on skills. You're refining those skills as well. This could be one on one, this could be in teams, and it's really driving their growth. Both personally, they're driving it, and they're helping you learn to drive for that growth. So to me, a great trainer coach is together because
Yep.
you got to learn the information and you got to practice it. And you, as a trainer, as an educator, and as a coach, you got to know when it's whole, putting in the information, and when you need to start breaking it down by skills so you can grow it. And if you think about that, whole learning it, breaking it down in skills, whole learning it, breaking it down in skills, that's the perfect formula for
Yep.
success, for performance. So to me, it's one. It's just you identify, are you the teacher or are you the coach? Are you the teacher, the coach? You need to be both. And
You
that's
need to be both.
mhm.
I love that. And you know what's kind of neat? One of the reasons we decided to do Coach's Corner is I would attend and my team would attend these like corporate learning exchanges and interacting with different really high senior level chief learning officers. And we would listen to them talk about coaching inside of their organization and training inside of their organization. And coaching always had a different definition depending on who was talking about it, right? Is it skill?
Exactly.
Yeah, and it was so funny because it's like, is it a skills-based thing that we're coaching for? Is it a concept? Are we coaching around building the team the right way to perform at the highest level? Or is it like career advancement or career development? Is it leadership? And all of those things all have the moniker coaching tied to it. So we thought it was really funny. We once said, hey, let's let everyone kind of talk and explain. And you're saying, Dan, it's you got to be both, right? You have to be a
You.
trainer, you have to be a coach. And what I loved about what you're talking about, it started in your intro and you keep talking about is you have to care about the people you're training and you're coaching. It's an underlying concept that you're talking about this whole time. So I love it. I think it's great. Thank you. And so what, you talk about technology, you talk about different things. What are some different ways that, over time, right? So when you were working with those kids who didn't know how to read and you had to get 2 years of reading into one semester, and then now when you're working with new, even in an IBO type of office, right? An independent business office type of, they run their own thing and you got to teach them and train them on different things. Where does technology fit in there for you, over that course of the career? And what are things that you've seen that have changed, Tamara?
It's so funny you say that because as I'm sitting here thinking about back in the day, that was in the 90s, we were actually using a form of computers and gamification through, again, breaking your skills in isolation to keep them motivated. We were using books to put it back. So you teach your skill in isolation, you put it in the hole is what you want them to do, the application portion of it. So we
Yep.
were teaching a little bit of gamification and working together to make that through. We just didn't have a lot back in the early 90s. A lot of that was manual. Today, move forward and through what we've done, we're always trying to find things to really engage. So another key thing, we keep talking about the training and the coaching of skills, the engagement is huge because when you're engaging your learner, endorphins kind of go off. It gets them excited, right, about what they're doing. They have to be engaged, they have to be motivated, whether that's a little bit of competition, whether there's a little flavor of, oh, wow, this is fun, to make it come to life. So today, as we've progressed through, we are always using technology. I don't know if I told you this, but back when I first started with Working Solutions, we have been virtual 100% of the time, even
Yes.
before the pandemic. So
Yep.
we had to think about how we were going to use technology all the time. We didn't have Zoom. We didn't have WebEx or any of those to help learning. We were doing it over a phone. So you had to be creative in what you were doing. So we were always finding ways to motivate and engage. So we were using lots of technology, and we still do, to provide engagement, to making sure we're making learning fun, how to break out in groups, all of those different things. But the one thing I think that technology has helped us even after the pandemic is using AI to help me scale. Because I'm very passionate about quality, about learning, and making sure we are giving our learners the best training they've ever had. When a learner comes to me and says, I learned better in your classroom than I did in a college course, everything I'm doing is awesome, right? When a client comes to me and say, what are you doing? In the first 50 calls, you're nailing it. What are you guys doing that's so different that we're not? That's education. That's good learning. So, how do I take that and scale it? And AI has been able to do that. As I told you, that's kind of my assistant instructor. It has allowed me to individualize, to give immediate feedback, because I can't have that many trainers working with 100 people. I need them to feel like I'm going through the process, I'm going through the skill, I'm getting immediate feedback. I got it. I feel great. I'm going to go back and do it again. Or I'm going to go back in the class and learn something new because my brain's ready to hear it. I'm not going to shut down because I'm overwhelmed and I've just been crammed with information. No, we dose them with information and we provide them with practice. So I got to say, for me right now, the tool that and technology is helping me in the classroom is AI. Also afterwards, everyone, usually people are using AI during the coaching or in the operations side. We're using it in training, but even afterwards, that call monitoring and scoring. Before we were manually listening to 2 or 3 calls. Now we can listen to all the calls. We can break it down and find out what the trends are. We can find and scale it down by sentiment. We can find by gaps and skills, silence in calls. Now we can take a look at that and then provide immediate coaching. Imagine that. Now all of a sudden we know exactly what Dan's doing. There's so much, well, we know there would be too much silence on the call, but there's
No,
wrong silence at the end. And
a
now we
lot of the
can
wrong
back
stuff happening, but not silent wrong
it.
stuff. Yeah, definitely.
So it's not going to be this, but it was this. We can give them the right feedback, get them on track, and nail it. So we're now really getting to what they need to really understand and be a better agent or a better student, everything with AI and technology.
I love it. I love it. And our chief AI officer, super excited to get the feedback. I told him it's coming from the Working Solutions team, feedback on intelligent coaching and tying those exercises back to those scorecards and what every agent's doing. So he's kind of geeking out and ready to get that feedback. So, and we talked about the team. Great team that you've built. They're all educators. We talked about BPO of the year and platform education learning platform of the year, right? You also, I think, you received a partner achievement award from one of your vendors.
I think I did. I did. And I do believe it happened to be Sin Train. And really, in all real, and I know you're asking me here, but we could have just taken this on. But as we are educators, we decided to make this a really unique pilot. And
Yep.
Dan, if you want, I'd love to share the pilot because it's a lot about learning and training, if that's good for you.
Yeah, no longer
Um,
a pilot, right? It definitely production, but yeah, I would love to because one of the things I was going to ask you is if there's anything you want to promote to our audience, right? I think you're speaking at a couple conferences this year because of your success. And yeah, if you want to share some of your success in terms of metrics on your utilization, that'd be awesome. Yeah, please share.
so, as all of you have heard today, I really feel that practice needs to be a part of your learning. 100%, hands down. I'm also going around the country consulting with a variety of different clients around the country as well. Hands down, there's too much teaching in the classroom. I write an article about an actual educator from Harvard who said before the pandemic, we were spending so much money on teaching rather than the learning. That's the practicing. So that really sunk with me in so many different ways. So when I did a pilot with SimTrain using AI, which I've done several of them, but this particular one, I really wanted to see how the different number of practice you need to do during your training till it sticks.
Yeah.
Okay. And when I say stick, that they can come out of the gate performing, right? Really meeting the criteria of what you want them to learn. And in this scenario, this client wanted us to have an NPS score, Net Promoter Score 50. World class is 70, just so you know, but 50 is where they want us to be. And we were competing against several vendors, 4 other vendors. And what we found is right away out of the gate, we had a group that basically went through the training and they didn't do any practice. We had a group who only practiced once. Now, there were several different simulations. And as we talked about, they were all chunked out throughout, but they only practiced it once throughout. We had another group who did it at least twice and practiced that. What we found, those that did none, we had higher attrition, about 35%. And those that practiced at least twice throughout the 2 3 week training, we had zero attrition. Now, that doesn't always happen, but that particular group, we had zero attrition. That means their engagement was high. That means they were excited about what they were doing. The other key thing, if you guys are geeking out about performance, and this is pretty darn exciting, with an NPS score, we had those that did 0%. They didn't do any practice at all. The goal is 50. They averaged right around 41%. And those that practiced at least twice, 67%. I mean,
Nice.
so that is crazy when you know world class is 70 and 50 was the goal. So to me, we're doing something right. We're
You were
teaching and we're practicing. And we're not only just practicing, just putting in things we think, our objectives are the KPIs. Our objectives are the goals, the end result. What is success? It's not what you think it is in training. It's not segmented. Our goals are what it is at the very end. And that's what we were practicing throughout.
Yeah, that's awesome. There's two things that I geek out on. Number one is when agents tell their managers and their bosses, like they're genuinely appreciative of the extra practice they get with SimTrain. Like that just hits me in the heart. But then also when L&D departments come to us and say, "Hey, thanks to SimTrain, we're so much more connected with our operating partners, and the outcomes of our training is so much easier to measure, and we're making a much bigger impact on performance today." So, Tamara, I really appreciate you sharing that. And Tamara Schroer, tell us, the audience, who are going to go read about you now because this is some awesome stuff and they know they can work with you on a consulting basis. Tell us something they're not going to find online or on LinkedIn. There's something about you that no one really knows that is something we should.
You know, this is kind of hard because I'm pretty much an open book,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
really something that no one knows is people don't know I kind of have my own personal dictionary. Ever since even as a little kid, I always had my own, they always call them the Tamaraisms. And I don't
Oh,
even write them. It's my team members, maybe even people from my family, but they reference Tamarisms and they kind of become legendary. I mean, they really do. And I got to say, they could be mispronounced words, they're fabrications, but they stick and they're memorable. And now it's become the culture even of my own team. So for example, and this is a great one. I'll tell you a funny one, but this is a great one. One of them is SALT, and it's a technique we use at Working Solutions after training. It stands for Strategic Applied Learning Techniques. It's what's put our performance on steroids, but I'm going to tell you, it just came up. I'm like, we need something that adds flavor to training and performance. What is that going to do? How can we pepper this in? And I'm like, we're going to salt it. And ever since then, it's just stuck. It is not, it doesn't, you can't find it anywhere. It's not a technique you can find, but it is now in our culture. So I have a lot of funny ones and made up words, and now it just happens. But I have my own Tamarisms many times. Some a little more embarrassing than that.
Tamara, I always thought you and I got along because of our shared connection with a gentleman who lives in Alpharetta, Georgia. But now I know there's a different reason. When I was in high school, my best friend coined the term mechanism. He's like, what the hell? What is that word? That's not in the dictionary, but it kind of makes sense, Dan. Like I've never heard it before. That's yet another mechanism. My college buddies said mechanisms, and it stuck with me in the career. Like they're starting to call them at SimTrain now, mechanisms. And my last company, there was a big joke about these mechanisms. So I like these Tamaraisms as well. So that's awesome. So Tamara, how about a favorite book? Maybe even a favorite movie or each that we might want to go read about or look up because you advise us we should.
One of my favorite books, I even use them to mentor my own people. Brene Brown, I love all of hers. Favorite Dare to Lead. A lot of people who know me, I love her quotes. She has just this great one-liners about leadership. So that's my favorite book. In
Cool.
terms of movies, I love everything. I love romance. I love mystery. I love anything. I'm a movie holic. I love anywhere from Sweet Home Alabama to Shawshank Redemption to you name it. But I love movies. It helps me sit and just detox my mind after a long week.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, Tamara, thank you so much. I love the concept of the difference between passive and active, right? In terms of learning and then educating, right? And my favorite is too much teaching, not enough learning, right? And practice being the key. So a lot of great lessons today. And it's really showed in today's conversation why you guys are winning all these awards and why you're performing at such a high level. So really appreciate you. Any parting words? I mean, you want to mention anything that you're going to be speaking in the second half of the year or articles coming out?
I will be speaking in Nashville at the Quality and Training in Nashville, so I'm very excited. And we are continuing to pilot a lot of different strategies and methodology with my team. So all I can say is keep growing, keep doing it, because the way you teach is the way you'll turn behavior.
Awesome. Yeah, keep coaching, everyone. Thanks,
Uh,
Tamara. Great
Thank
talking
you.
to you today. See you
Uh-huh.
guys. Have a good
Bye-bye.
day.